Okay. And I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrea Lewandowski, and I am the library consultant for small business development and technology at the New Jersey State Library. I'm really happy that you are here with us today. I think that this is an important topic, and I'm very excited to have Megan joining us to discuss small business services, libraries, and the impact of COVID. So just to go over a couple of things, you can use both the chat box and the Q&A box for discussion and questions. And we really are interested in your comments and your feedback. This webinar, as you heard me say earlier, is being recorded. It will be shared on the New Jersey State Library's YouTube channel. It will also go out in an email link to all registrants after the session. And it will be shared on NJSL Direct and the Library Link NJ Forum. So you have a link a few different ways. If this topic is of interest to you and you would like to learn more, you can contact me, and this is my email address, alewandowski@njstatelib.org. The emails that were automatically generated from this might also come back to me, or I will be included in those. So if you don't have a chance to write that down, there are other ways to get in touch. And there will be an evaluation at the end of today's webinar. So if you wouldn't mind filling that out, that information always helps us to plan future sessions and also to find out what we can improve moving forward. And just before we get started, I want to introduce as well Naomi Torres Velez. She is going to be helping to monitor the chat and the Q&A box. So you might hear from me or you might hear from Naomi. And I'm going to introduce Megan in a second, but first I just wanted to give a little bit of my context for this session today. So the pandemic has had a ripple effect through our lives, our society, and our economy. And we're dealing with the difficult decisions and uncertainties of the here and now. It seems like we're all basically just trying to make it through a day or a week at a time. I know I definitely am in my personal life and my work life. But we also have to force ourselves to look ahead and to look more broadly. There is no doubt that libraries are essential to local economies, providing valuable resources and services to business owners and entrepreneurs. Small business owners and entrepreneurs will drive the economic recovery. They will create jobs. They will pay taxes. They will give back. They will buy from and sell to other local businesses. They will create their own ripple effect through our communities. So thank you very much for taking the time today to learn about the opportunities that exist and to think about how your libraries can respond to and support these businesses and entrepreneurs. And if these topics, like I said earlier, are of interest to you, we would like you, I would encourage you to connect with like-minded individuals. And if you reach out to me, I will connect you with the NJ Libs Grow Biz group. And we have an email list, and I can let you know about upcoming events and meetings that cover these topics. So all of that said, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Megan Janicki is the project manager for the Libraries Build Business Initiative at the American Library Association's Public Policy and Advocacy Office in Washington, D.C. She is a co-author for the November 2020 Open to Change paper. She comes to ALA with a background in workforce development, adult literacy, social services, and equity and inclusion. She holds a master's degree from Vanderbilt University in learning, diversity, and urban studies. Thank you again for joining us, Megan, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Let me get my slides up. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Awesome.
Yes, looks good.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for being here today. It is such an honor to get to talk with you all, and thank you again to Andrea for setting this up. As Andrea said, my name is Megan Janicki. I'm the project manager for the Libraries Build Business Initiative at ALA. Today I wanted to talk with you all about a paper sort of adjacent to the Libraries Build Business initiative that we put out in November of this past year, about the challenges and opportunities facing small businesses and entrepreneurs right now in the face of COVID, and kind of in the new normal that we are moving towards. And just some ideas, really just the tip of the iceberg on ways libraries could respond. We left that sort of intentionally open because there aren't really best practices in the field right now. Of course, the pandemic is less than a year old and everyone is just reacting and trying new things. So that's something kind of down the road that, and so part of what I'd love to hear from you all today about is what you're doing, what has worked, what have the challenges been, because there might be a part two where we can provide more concrete examples, promising practices of how to successfully engage small business and entrepreneurs during an economic crisis like the one we're experiencing now. So again, I'm Megan, that's me. I want to hear from everyone today. We're going to use the chat and the Q&A, and Andrea and Naomi will be checking that for me. So feel free to add in a question or a comment at any point. We'll pause a few different places for them to read those out. So the paper, like I said, is focused on examples of ways small businesses are pivoting and some opportunities that are open to them as new needs and new markets emerge. And so I'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your local community. What are small businesses struggling with? What are libraries doing to respond and be part of the recovery? And we're hoping to gather these experiences from the field and maybe put those together down the road. So that's kind of the intention with the paper. Nothing too prescriptive. We want you to get some ideas to consider for your own local community's needs and really tailor that approach on what makes sense based on where you are and what you're seeing in your community. Every community, every business community is different by types of businesses that exist where you are, the demographic and socioeconomic makeup. So that's the reasoning today. And that's what I want to do today. So I'll give a quick overview of Libraries Build Business if you're not familiar, talk about some of the highlights from the paper, which by the way is available. I'm happy to provide that link if you haven't seen it before. And then I would like to open the floor. So I'd really love to hear from everyone what you've been working on and what you've been experiencing where you are. So just some quick background on Libraries Build Business. This is an initiative from ALA supported by google.org. We kicked off in April 2020 with a selection of 13 public libraries from around the country, representing 12 states and locations, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal, and library systems large and small. We held a rigorous selection process in the fall of 2019. We had almost 90 initial applicants. I'm really thrilled with the cohort. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet them, I encourage you to stay in touch with us. I'll talk more at the end about how you can do that. So the cohort, of course, we brought together to provide grant money for their small business and entrepreneur programs and services. But we also came together to kind of answer the question, what library-led entrepreneurship models best help low-income and or underrepresented entrepreneurs start and grow small businesses? Our priority is equity, diversity, and inclusion in the small business space. What ways can we be more inclusive in small business communities? What role do libraries have in helping small businesses run effectively, both aspiring and existing businesses? The cohort has a variety of business programs from, kind of veterans that are testing or scaling a program that they've been doing for years in a larger space, from others just getting off the ground with their first business programs. And that's something I really love about our peer learning network. Everyone has different experience and skills and expertise, and we're able to work together to troubleshoot things, provide resources to one another, And despite the pandemic, that's going very well. So like I said, April 2020, so the libraries were planning to open these programs in person. So over the summer, they had to quickly pivot to offer these programs virtually. Right now, most of our cohort is offering virtual programs and services at the moment. In a couple of locations, people are able to offer some limited in-person services. So there's a lot of great stuff coming up with our initiative and ways for a broader community to get involved. We are expanding our peer learning network. I will talk more about that at the end, but we'd love for people to get involved. We have a playbook coming out at the end of the year or early 2022 that will be kind of some of the promising practices and lessons learned from our project and resources that we've developed, including measurement and evaluation resources. So we're working with a consulting group to collaboratively design an evaluation framework and a theory of change, in addition to some survey and interview instruments that could be used to evaluate the impact of your programs. So stay tuned for those. Those should be available soon. So I can, so this is our map of just our cohort. As you can see, everywhere across the country, we're really excited about the diversity in the cohort. But I can pause here, and if anyone has any questions about Libraries Build Business, I'm happy to answer those before we move on.
So I see that there is another question, but I think that's for a little bit later. If anyone has any questions specifically about Libraries Build Business, you can type it in now. Or if you raise your hand, I can try to unmute you. I think we can probably move ahead, and then at the next break, if there's anything, we can circle back.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so stay in touch with us about Libraries Build Business. I can provide kind of more info through our website or some of our products that we've already created if you're interested in more background on the project and what the various libraries are working on in detail. So I will talk more about that at the end. Okay, so in regards to our paper, in November 2020, we developed a paper called Open to Change, Libraries Catalyze Small Business Adaption to COVID-19. This paper was put together by ALA and the Libraries Build Business Initiative to kind of explore the challenges and opportunities presented to the small business community. It's really about how the crisis has impacted small businesses and the opportunities it has presented. We know that things have been very hard, but there is a level of opportunity for people as well if they have the right supports and resources to pivot effectively right now. So a pivot is reorganizing an existing business around its purpose in order to accommodate a changed environment or circumstance. So the pandemic, right? So these questions here on the slide are some that a business owner or entrepreneur might be asking when they're thinking about starting a business or pivoting a business. So who is the customer? Who delivers the product or service? What is the product or service being offered? When is this product or service offered? Where is the product or service available? How is the product or service prepared and made available? And why is the combination of these factors more desirable to the customer? So obviously the pandemic kind of changed the when, where, and how dramatically. And then businesses had to kind of mitigate that as that it then challenged the what and the who. So that's a lot of the things that businesses need to consider when, excuse me, when they're thinking about pivoting to respond to the emerging need or emerging market and provide a new service or product at this time. So we identified 3 categories of opportunities for small businesses and entrepreneurs. So many small businesses and entrepreneurs are pivoting. So to pivot an existing business to a new format, product, or services. Because the landscape has changed so dramatically, a lot of new needs and new markets have emerged. We're living in a completely different world. So there's a lot of new things that people now need in communities. So businesses are able to kind of harness that and see what people need and respond accordingly. So we've all seen this, right? There's a lot of great examples of restaurants now offering takeout or like Friday night chef's class or something in order to attract business, or virtual gyms and yoga studios and cycling studios offering virtual classes and rental equipment to take home. So those would be examples of existing businesses pivoting. There's also space for emerging startups and entrepreneurs. Perhaps a person or a group sees an emerging need and they can be responsive to that, or they have resources that are available at this crucial time. So they might not have been involved in business for a variety of reasons prior to the pandemic, but a new opportunity has been presented. Maybe they have more time on their hands due to scheduling changes or layoffs, or maybe they just have a certain resource that is now kind of or skill that is now in high demand. So that's something else we're seeing. And then commercial innovations. So we know about this too, is like typically a commercial innovation uses the same resources or maybe the same kind of business model, but now they are making a new product with those things. So masks, right? Every retailer sells us masks now, or I don't know about you, but I get a ton of ads for loungewear from brands that used to sell, my business casual. So things like that might be examples of commercial innovations. So if we think about those, again, it's not just a time to scrape by, but it could be the time to thrive with the right opportunity. I would love to hear from you all some of the innovative examples you've seen. Feel free to put things like that in the chat if you have cool examples of pivots or commercial innovations that you've experienced. That would be cool. And Andrea, I'll give people a minute. So if there's anything that comes up, we can talk now.
So we do still have the one question. Do we want to answer that now, or do we still want to wait a little bit?
Yeah, let's wait for that question and get some of the examples now. And I actually have one. I put it into the chat. But I spoke to someone who is in Philadelphia, and he started a business that he would take orders all week from people who wanted bagels from New York. And then on the weekend, he would drive to New York, pick up the bagels, and then drop them off at people's doors, like on their doorsteps. And of course, he's charging a premium for this because, he's putting all the miles on his car and everything. But it's such an easy thing that if you don't have access to good bagels, which so many people don't, you would pay $2-3 per bagel just to have them delivered, and with all of the like cream cheese and lox and whatever else that you want. So I thought that was really interesting, and probably no one would think about that pre-COVID as being something to explore. But I don't know that he was making enough to live on, but certainly doing pretty well with it.
I love that. That's really, really interesting.
And then Cynthia in the chat says that her salon began offering color at home kits. So that's a good idea too.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
I don't see anything else, but I'm sure that if you think about it, you probably have encountered some of those similar things, businesses pivoting.
Yeah, feel free to, if you want to, feel free to chat in anything. I'd love to see, but yeah, we can move on for now. Oh, go ahead.
In my neighborhood, a few yogis created community-based yoga classes in local parks.
Awesome.
A good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Cool. Okay. So here are some tips for small business owners and entrepreneurs. but I think important for library workers to also consider as you consider what kinds of support your small business community might need right now. So we are suggesting communication, commitment, and contribution. Communicate, commit, and contribute. So a big thing right now is the promotion and marketing of your product or service. This is a big place for, especially for retailers that have never had like a big online presence. This is where they're going to need a lot of support in pivoting. They need to use a variety of channels, a website that is highly functional, organized, easy to use, especially if you're using it to make purchases and orders. Social media, businesses need a variety of social media platforms. I've seen commonly used as Facebook and Instagram, but even Twitter are good places for that. If you have local TV, radio, news, I know in DC we have a couple of like restaurant blogs, and so that's a great place for people to write in and share what their current specials are or what their hours are. If they have heat lamps, like that kind of thing. Signage, so having up-to-date signage will make a big difference. It is an investment. A lot of businesses that are just trying to scrape by maybe don't want to go to the trouble of printing new banners or signs, but it is something that would be important right now. And just keeping your answering machine up to date with your current hours and offerings is also a good idea. So using a variety of channels, but then to share what services you're offering and how to order and purchase, especially right now, people really want to know kind of the steps that are in place. That's really important to getting people connected to your product or service. And they also want to know what your guidelines and safety protocols are. So they want to know, what the experience is going to be like so they can assess their risk. Are masks required when you enter? How many other people can be there? Will you be doing temperature checks? They have to sign anything? Those kinds of things. So people want to know, or do you need a reservation? People want to know that you are you're committed to safety, and that they can kind of know what they're getting into before they get there. So those are the really important things to communicate right now. And of course, keeping up to date with changing conditions and respond with your messaging accordingly. That's a great time to put up a social media post if your menu's changed, or if your hours have changed, or if you have a new product. I know in DC there was a big push to winterize. We're just doing outdoor dining, and so the restaurants would be putting up on their social media like, we have heat lamps, or we have those little bubble table things. So letting people know what they have so they know what the experience might be like. So that kind of covers communicate, and then also commit. So commit to your safety and your guidelines. And then mutual aid is another piece that I think small businesses could really leverage and consider right now. So they need to demonstrate their role in the community by offering support and partnership to other community businesses, neighbors, and of course their customers. A great way to do this is to ask for feedback. Ask your customers what they want to see, what they need. There's a restaurant in my neighborhood that has decided to become a convenience store during the pandemic. And so they asked everyone, what kind of beer should we stock, and what snacks do you like, and do you need first aid supplies, or that kind of thing. So they knew what to get. So treating your customers and your neighbors as stakeholders is a really great way to demonstrate your investment in the community and your role in being a partner and a resource right now. And I think just kind of harnessing that and leveraging that to make appeals to neighbors. So people are really have this sentiment of mutual aid and community support right now. So people are happy to contribute to their local communities and want to do so if they know how and what you need, and vice versa, if they know that you are also going to be a reliable resource now and in the future. So another suggestion that has worked, I think, for a lot of small businesses is making that appeal to the community for support, letting people know what you need and how they can help. So if you need business so they can maybe buy gift cards while you're closed, or if you need people to come out or help spread the word. You know, I've seen Instagram posts or other social media posts where businesses make this direct appeal and then they're flooded with reservations for a couple of weeks. So that's like an easy way for businesses to think about their role in the community and hopefully kind of stake out some opportunity there. So these are just some examples of new opportunities that have emerged, new markets that have emerged because of the pandemic. So a lot of these are really probably obvious if you think about it, and we list a few more in the paper, but everyone's spending so much time at home and maybe had to refurbish an area to set up some work from home or school distance learning space. So home decor is really big. Gardening and landscaping, home education services for the same reason, meal prep and delivery, the fitness rentals and purchases that I mentioned, professional cleaning, so homes, offices, public transportation, grocery stores, and then telehealth for things like physical therapy or counseling, beyond just like primary care and traditional medicine. A lot of telehealth has been encouraged in some of those other spaces, like I said, like counseling or physical therapy. I mentioned equity, diversity, and inclusion is a really integral goal of the Libraries Build Business Initiative. Our cohort was selected based on their commitment to working with low income or underrepresented groups. So they needed to have sort of a demonstrated history of working with people from those communities. So we have kind of a big gamut of communities. We have people working with immigrants and English learners, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women small business owners. We have veterans, returning citizens, tribal community. So a really interesting and diverse group in order to kind of think about inclusion, equity, and diversity in the small business space. So the same for the pandemic. As we know, those already more marginalized communities are also most likely to be first impacted by a crisis. And a lot of this comes down to, of course, just the lack of capital and the lack of cushion that small business owners from more marginalized backgrounds might experience. They have less of a safety net in terms of financial resources. They might not have the same resources to pivot quickly to an online environment because those things do take significant investment, right? So like we know, I have one stat here from the paper, but in the first 3 months of the pandemic, the number of Black business owners declined by 41%. So that's just one sort of example of how low-income communities or underrepresented communities might be impacted first by a crisis like the pandemic. Another thing to think about is that there's a lot of industries in the community that might not be as amenable to work from home, or might not be that might not be a ready option. And these are often sort of frontline workers, right, are traditionally from low-income groups or underrepresented groups, disproportionate to the white community. So yeah, I think that's something else to think about, is what businesses are even able to pivot to the work from home kind of environment, which was been more like middle class or upper middle class jobs. Here's just a few tips on what small business owners and entrepreneurs need most right now, and something to consider again when thinking about programs and services at your library. So clear guidance, of course, on when and how to reopen. A lot of people are paying attention to their local jurisdictions and the CDC guidance in order to understand what will be safe for them and their customers and their staff. Coordinated reopening across jurisdictions to prevent losing employees and customers. This is a big thing where I am in DC, because we have Maryland and Virginia just a few miles away, and they have whole states beyond just the metro area to contend with. So we have, had to do a lot of thinking about what's safe or what makes sense in terms of if Virginia opens their indoor dining, but DC doesn't, that kind of thing. Money to cover fixed costs, so that capital, like I said, a lot of times, even if people's retail spaces are closed to the public, it doesn't mean their rent has gone away, or their utility costs, things like that, of course. The training to shift operations online, again, a lot of small business owners don't necessarily have an online footprint yet, and that have much experience with that, with online retail. So that's a big change for some businesses. The access to technology equipment and internet in order to do so. This is something that's really hard right now because so many libraries are closed for in-person services. And we of course know that libraries are one of the main ways that people have internet access in a lot of communities. So that's been really hard. Training to adapt to the pandemic environment, that's kind of an ongoing, as everything changes, it feels like daily. And then a couple of things that have been offered that are beneficial beyond the pandemic, but coaching and mentoring by business experts right now and always, and then the online classes on entrepreneurship. Moving those to online is helpful for small business owners and entrepreneurs right now. And we have in our Libraries Build Business cohort, a few of our libraries are offering both coaching and mentoring by virtual appointment, and then the online classes in business and entrepreneurship right now. So I have some great examples from our Libraries Build Business cohort of library innovations and promising practices during this time. They've been working on this since April, really, to try and pivot their services for small businesses and entrepreneurs to an online environment, trying to figure out how they can still do outreach to their business community right now. And they've had to try a lot of new things and just kind of see what sticks. So just a few examples here, but we have some libraries that are doing virtual peer learning opportunities. So maybe they have like a discussion board for small business, either aspiring small businesses or already existing small businesses, that they can ask one another questions, or they have like a once a week or once a month meetup group for small businesses in a virtual Zoom room kind of thing. The same for office hours. There's a library that's set up like an office hours environment with their SCORE partner, and people can make appointments to talk with that representative, and that's kind of supplementary to their existing SCORE business classes. So if people want extra support in between classes, they can do something like that. A library of things that includes some business resources. So people might need to check out hotspots or Chromebooks, or maybe a ring light or a podcasting kit, sewing machine, a lot of these things. Maybe it's software for developing your website, or some graphic design, that kind of thing. So a lot of those things have been made available for checkout. Virtual programming. I think almost all of our libraries at this point in the cohort are doing some form of virtual programs. They're offering business classes online, or ESL classes in one case. That kind of thing has all been moved online, which comes with new challenges, but is at least something that is accessible right now during the pandemic. The coaching and mentoring by appointment. So we have a library that uses an entrepreneur in residence model, where they select a seasoned business professional from their community. And in the past, they've had this person available inside the library for appointments, but they've made through kind of an online platform where people can make virtual appointments to talk with this person, help them talk through a business model, that kind of thing. Makerspaces and business centers. We have a library that has it's in a smaller community, but where they've been able to figure out a way to offer open access kind of off hours. So if you filled out a certain application, you can come in and use the printers or the software in the business center on your own. And that's something that they've been able to set up so people can still have access to the equipment that they need. Partnerships are really, really important right now. So keep up with your SCORE, SBA, SBDC, whoever your local partners are. Likely they are offering online programming, or they might have a big listserv of people that you can tap into. So definitely keep partnerships kind of current because you can work together. And then, like I said before, a lot of small businesses really need the marketing and promotion support right now. So that's something that some of the libraries in the cohort are working on. And that's maybe offering online programs about how to use social media and how to do the analytics, or how to design a website. I know there's one library that has some like software that they can rent, I think. So that kind of thing are some of the early ideas that we've seen from our program. In terms of the long-term outlook for economic recovery, as we know, everything will continue to shift. The needs of the communities will continue to change. The market will change. And so libraries will continue to be a crucial partner through these transitions. Small businesses need to figure out what's next through research, databases, understanding the market and the trends, the needs of their customers. So that's something to consider. Like, it's not just about surviving the pandemic, but that things will continue to transition, and people will want to prepare for kind of what's on the other side, in addition to kind of just getting through now. So how will needs in your communities change? What kinds of new things will be offered, or what are people going to want to do once this is over? So something to think about there. So I am going to pause now. I would love to hear from you all. How has your library worked with local small businesses and entrepreneurs? What pivots, adaptations, and innovations have small businesses in your community made? And then if there's other things, I'd love to hear what you've been working on, what's worked, what's kind of the outlook right now where you are. Yeah, I would love to hear from anyone kind of about anything we've talked about so far, and just open the floor, so to speak, via the chat.
We currently have, oh, sorry.
I'll let you
I
go
was just gonna
ahead.
say
Yeah, we did have some questions come through.
Yeah, so we have 3 questions. So I'll start with the first one. Luis Rodriguez asked, what are some strategies for pivoting post-COVID?
Yeah, great question. So I think kind of the same with the pivoting right now. I think the thing that small businesses need the most is to identify what the needs are or will be. They can do that through market research as one idea. But yeah, I think that long-term planning is going to be essential to small businesses being successful post-COVID.
Cynthia had a question saying, many small businesses are just that small. They don't have space for private discussions. Libraries could help with this, allowing for-profits to use meeting rooms, yet many still stay away from offering this basic service for profits. Is that changing? How do we encourage library management and boards to be open to for-profit organizations?
That might be a better question for Andrea.
So in terms of rentals and things like that, it is a tricky area. I know that Michelle is on this call. She's not necessarily participating, she's more listening, but I know that we've had conversations in the past about that you need to be careful what you're charging for, and that I think libraries keep that in mind when they're offering meeting room space and things like that. But that said, there are examples of libraries such as Cherry Hill Public Library had a space where it used to be their friends book sale area, but then they had been renting it out to local business owners as like a pop-up shop. So there are examples of libraries that are doing things in different ways. I know that it is a tricky area, and it feels as though space is a resource that needs to be shared equitably. However, I think I'm a little bit more open to those kinds of things because business owners and entrepreneurs, they do give back so much to the community. So if there are ways to create spaces that they can use, if there are ways to make the room maybe more for a purpose than thinking about the organization using it, that I think overall it does benefit the library to be supportive of business owners. And I know that this might be a conversation for a little bit later when we're in the reopening, but maybe it is something to start thinking about now as well, as we are reevaluating what space means and how the library can be used by everyone. So I know that Cynthia kind of added in like study rooms that a small business could use to do an interview. And Nancy just shared in the chat about a program that's going on in her library. I don't know if that's about space. So I guess I rather than answering that specifically, I can punt that back, but that maybe be encouraged to open things up to more people. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's a really tricky space, but your point is a good one. Small businesses are very small, and we know, like from what I said, that a lot of them lack sort of that capital too. So some shared space, shared resources are crucial to their success. So figuring out what your library can offer fairly, equitably is a great conversation.
Our last question that we have is also from Lewis, and he asked, where do you get such detailed and very local data on business failures?
Great question. I guess I don't really know the answer to that question, but I imagine some of the databases would look, I know there's a lot of but the problem is so much of it's emerging in real time, right? But there is a lot of research being done. We use like the Pew Charitable Trust a lot at ALA for that kind of work. There's a lot you can look at, like the Small Business Association, Small Business Development Center of America. They try to keep tabs on those kinds of things. I don't know if Andrea also has suggestions.
yeah, I think along those lines, the small business development centers and the local chambers are probably keeping, and local economic development commissions or corporations are probably keeping tabs on that. A local economic development office, if your community or your county has something like that. I don't think that there's any information that's making its way into reference solutions or anything like that yet. So it might be a little bit more anecdotal or using partners than finding it in a specific database at this point. And there was a comment in the chat about pivoting how businesses update websites, and that if they don't have access to the website, maybe because they use a webmaster or something like that, they may need to use other tools such as social media to provide more up-to-date current information just because they don't have access to their website.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people use like a webmaster or something, and often that's a more affordable option. So yeah, I know like a lot of small businesses kind of rely more on their Facebook advertising. Or like I said, I know here in DC, we have a couple of like restaurant or around town blogs where people can submit things, and a lot, I look at that every day just to get kind of the info on what's going on. So that might be a good way if there's things like that in your community where people could keep the public abreast of their changes or what's going on with them.
Yeah, and that's something that a library could put together for their business community to say, just so you know, these are the main Facebook pages that the community uses. This is how you get in touch with your local paper, if you have a patch or something like that, to kind of pull that together for them in one place. If you're looking to expand a LibGuide or a research guide or something. And it also makes me think about how a lot of times we think about the library as being the place where we have to be an expert or we have to connect to the expert. But I believe, if I remember correctly, that some of these libraries build business locations are maybe just setting the table and allowing the business owners to really connect to each other. Have you seen any programs like that where it's a little bit more informal and they're helping each other?
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely. So there are a couple of programs that are more about the space and the services, which is a little frustrating right now with the pandemic. But yeah, that being the idea that they have this designated business room where they can use high quality laptops and software and things like that. Or they have it was supposed to be like one night a week, and now sometimes they're doing like those online where they have like a networking night, and you can just pop into the Zoom room, or you would have been able to just pop into the library and connect with others that are working on businesses in your area and just meet people and get to know people. So that's definitely true. We have 2 or 3 programs that I would say are more hands off, but like they have the equipment ready for small businesses and entrepreneurs to access.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned earlier with SCORE, SCORE is very active in New Jersey. A lot of libraries in New Jersey have partnerships with SCORE, maybe have hosted SCORE mentors or have offered programs on site. And I would just encourage anyone listening, if you have existing partnerships or you're looking to get involved with SCORE, it's a volunteer-based organization. They've been doing a lot of free things during the pandemic. So I can put you in touch with your local SCORE chapter. And if that's a way that you would like to offer some services to businesses. And then we had Nancy. I want to read what she said, because I did hear about this going on in her community, and it's like like she calls it a mini stimulus program. So
Cool.
The town sells gift cards for local businesses at half the face value. Town residents buy the cards and spend them at face value. Business owners submit them back to the town government and get reimbursed for the difference. Funds come from community development grants and large corporate donors. Only businesses in the town can participate, and only town residents can buy the gift cards. She says the library is not involved, but it's been innovative and highly successful. So that's an interesting idea to get people to spend locally.
Yeah, I love that. Nancy, if you wouldn't mind, if you want to contact me, you could send me that information, because that's the kind of innovation that we're looking for maybe like a part 2 of our Open to Change paper. That's really, really interesting. And it's a good example of mutual aid and recognizing that businesses are really important to the fabric of our communities, and we want them here. We want them to support us and be here with us. And in order to do that, we have to. So that's really cool.
And we have another comment from Lynn Hill. We have a community college who developed a workforce group in New Jersey where they offer training on courses such as Microsoft and many others. And they also keep statistics from the SBDC and others on jobs available, industries offering most jobs, training needed for those jobs, and everything is free through their website for certain counties. And other counties are starting to do the same thing. So this way, with the stats, they know what jobs are most in demand, and also small business owners can post on the website. And they have a partnership with SCORE and others, and offered a training program recently at our library. Ooh, so that's a lot, but it sounds really good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Lynn, if you don't mind sharing which county and which community college that is, that would be great to know. But I think that is an important note, which Megan, you did mention, is that partnerships are so important. Can you give some other examples maybe of some places where the libraries have been partnering that, we have some of the standard ones, but are there any others?
Yeah, great question. So in Providence, they are working with the University of Rhode Island to do different programs for, their program is mainly for English learners and new Americans. So some programs to help them with like surveying the area, what kind of businesses they want to do. They're also working with the local community college to provide the English language learners with English classes, and specifically English for Business classes. So that's been really cool. In Wyoming, they have a partnership with the University of Wyoming to offer like a startup competitions, so that they can provide some, and this isn't through the Libraries Build Business grant, but the University of Wyoming has some money to provide this like startup competition money, so people can get $5,000 if they do a pitch, quote unquote. I'm trying to think. Of course, everyone's kind of working with their SCORE and their SBDC. That kind of thing is very common and definitely recommended. Like Andrea said, they are amazing partners. In Broward County in Florida, they have General Assembly, which is a really amazing tech group that often usually costs like a couple $1,000s for a course, but they've been able to partner with them to offer some of their coding classes at no cost through the library. So that's been a really amazing partnership. They have another tech partnership I think is local to them. It's called Black Valley Digital, and they have been able to offer some training and services for people that want to break into the tech industry. So just some basic examples. I can point you to our Libraries Build Business website, and there's a one-pager on each of our libraries, and many of them list some of their community partners. So yeah, and if you should, we'll talk about this at the end, but I'd love for you to connect with the Libraries Build Business cohort, and they can give you some great ideas on who they've worked with in the past.
Yeah, that was one of my questions too. If I know that Libraries Build Business had a kickoff luncheon where everyone was introduced, but will there be anything else like that that we should be aware of, or can we snag some people in New Jersey for something so that we can hear from them directly?
Yeah, great question. So I'll go ahead and change to the next slide. So Midwinter is starting, ALA's Midwinter is starting this weekend. LBB has a on-demand session, so we pre-recorded it, that you can access at any point during it if you are registered for Midwinter. And we're doing it sort of a live watch party on Sunday at 2:00 Eastern. If you have not registered for Midwinter, or if you have, either way, we're also having a Libraries Build Business mixer on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. That'll be really informal, but feel free to stop into our Zoom room and ask questions. If you have questions specifically for a member of a cohort, we can connect you directly with them. If you just want kind of an overview, we'll be there to answer those questions as well. So that's the main thing coming up, but that's a great question, Andrea. We do try to offer at least quarterly kind of a project update via Zoom where we can invite people in and to connect with everyone. So the other big thing that's happening right now, I mentioned this at the beginning, is we are working on expanding our community. So we've opened up a Slack discussion board. Right now, it's just kind of for Midwinter to answer any questions about our program, that kind of thing. But it will eventually expand into sort of, we hope, a big, robust discussion board full of lots of different discussions, people kind of breaking off into, you know, by library type or geographic area or type of program you're interested in offering. So we're really hoping to launch that successfully, and that's just getting underway. And you can contact me for more info on how to get into Slack. We use all the social media channels with hashtag Libraries Build Business. So we are on Twitter at American Library Association or at Library Policy. And then we have Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We have a web page. I'm happy to send that to people. And then that's my contact information there, mjanicki@alawash.org. And like I said, I'm happy to send you more information about the Midwinter programs. We would love to see you there. And yeah, I just love for you to be in touch. I hope this was useful. And if you thought this was useful, then you'll definitely enjoy speaking with our cohort, who's actually kind of working on all of this right now. And is just doing some really cool stuff.
That's great. Thank you. And if you don't mind emailing me some of that information, I'll make sure that goes out to the registrants in a follow-up email as well, along with the recording.
Yes, I will do that. Perfect.
Awesome. So I do see that the person who wrote before clarified that the community college, the workforce group, is Greater Raritan, workforce development group, and they work with Raritan Community College. So for anyone looking for more information about that, and they work in Somerset and Hunterdon counties. So thank you everyone for joining today. I'm going to put a link to our evaluation form into the chat, and I'm also going to put my email address again. So if anyone would like to reach out to me, I can share how you can join the NJ Libs Grow Biz group. We've been meeting about monthly during the pandemic, but we're looking at how to do that moving forward in 2021 to talk about some of these topics and get updates. And I also let that group know when there are things of interest. So you can join that listserv and find out about our events. And also, I will be sending out the information from Megan and the recording probably tomorrow. So if there are no other last minute questions, which it doesn't look like there is, we're going to go ahead and close out the webinar. So thank you again, Megan. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone else who logged in today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.